Yo, what's up? My name is Patrouski, and welcome to my gift shop buying guide for PokeMMO updated for 2026. There have been a lot of new items added to the gift shop over the previous years, and one of them is a must buy in my opinion. Today, I'll be teaching you through all the different items and going through what is a must buy, what is a heavily recommended buying, what is decently worth buying, what is barely worth buying, and what to avoid entirely in my opinion. Make sure, as always, if you find this video helpful, go ahead and leave a like, maybe a positive comment, and subscribe for daily PokeMMO videos. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it with the most important item, the most important must-buy, in my opinion, on this whole list. And that is going to be the XP Reamplifier. There's a few reasons why this item is a must-buy. Number one, RP is actually cheaper than it's ever been right now. If we look over on PokeMMO Hub, we can see that the price of 1000 RP has come down from 3 million Pokeyen 3 years ago or 4 years ago, now all the way down to about 1.4 million Pokeyen. Now, I could spend all day speculating on why this is, but RP has never been this cheap, which is really, really good for the average PokeMMO player. It means things like every item, every shiny charm, every XP Reamplifier is that much cheaper. The XP Reamplifier used to cost about 3 million Pokeyen, and at that price point, and before the buff that it got a few years ago, I guess 1 or 2 years ago at this point, it wasn't really worth buying. If you go watch my old video called "Is the XP Reamplifier Worth Buying?" I'm not super big on it, but after a pretty big buff, as well as the cost of RP making it less than half the price that it used to be, makes it incredibly worth and incredibly a must buy in my opinion. Another important thing is that the item is untradeable. You can't just go buy an XP Reamplifier off the GTL. You have to buy a 1000 RP voucher and then buy the item, and it is locked onto your account. Let's actually talk about what does the XP Reamplifier do. The TLDR is that it's mostly an XP all that you can turn on. And you can kind of activate, in the crucial Pokemon games. I can head over to my XP Reamplifier in my inventory, go ahead and click it and click turn on, and that's going to make it so that whenever I gain XP, it is evenly split amongst my party, as opposed to just going to Pokemon with XP shares. That is relevant for things like XP training a Meowth, where people will often accidentally evolve their Meowth into a Persian, and it's a huge pain in the butt. With the XP Reamplifier, you can put an Everstone onto the Meowth, whereas normally when XP training, you'd have to have the XP share, and you can't have 2 items on 1 Pokemon. So the Reamplifier opens up that as a money-making method, consistently being able to XP train up Meowths. But the real benefit of the XP Reamplifier, in my opinion, is the way the XP is split up. You see, the way that XP shares work in PokeMMO is that it splits the XP in half, or at least evenly among all parties. So for example, if you have your lead Pokemon, like my level 100 Breloom, in the lead of my party, and then I put the XP share on my Shuckle, for example, 50% of the XP will go to the Breloom and 50% will go to the Shuckle. Now, the problem with that is XP going to a level 100 Pokemon is wasted. It just goes poof. You don't get any benefits. It doesn't go anywhere. But often when you're XP training, it is still best to use a level 100 Pokemon. The XP Reamplifier only puts 25% of that XP into the leading Pokemon. So the other 75% XP goes to whatever Pokemon are in your party. So if I had this Shuckle, for example, and then all level 100s in my party, aside from my, or I guess aside from the Shuckle, then that Shuckle still gets 75% of the XP. 25% goes to the lead Pokemon, but then if the Pokemon are level 100 in your inventory, they're also not wasted. The XP does not distribute to them. It just goes to underleveled Pokemon like the Shuckle, for example. Now, this is kind of advanced and honestly a little bit confusing in my opinion, but the TLDR is that you will get 25% essentially more XP when XP training if you are using a level 100 Pokemon like most people are when they XP train. And then on top of that boost, you also just get a flat plus 5% additional XP from each battle onto each Pokemon. So if you're XP training 5 Pokemon all at once, that's actually 25% more boosted XP, 5% times 5. Since they all get the boost of XP. So effectively, if you're using a level 100 Pokemon to XP train like you normally would be, you're gaining basically 50% extra XP when using the Reamplifier. And that's not even considering when you pop things like XP charms, which you absolutely should be doing if you are XP training, because XP charms are incredibly cheap and boost your XP tremendously. You have to ask yourself, would you pay 53,000 Pokeyen to save 1 hour of your time? The answer for everybody should basically be a unanimous yes, please. If you can make at least 53,000 Pokeyen per hour, that is vehemently worth it. All of these reasons are why I'm very, very high up on the XP Reamplifier. It is a very, very powerful item these days. The only reason you might not want it is if you just don't do a lot of XP training. Maybe you're just a PvPer or just a shiny hunter, or you just don't really XP train for whatever reason. Most people do lots of aspects of the game, but if you're someone who only really does one aspect, maybe you just don't need it. And that's going to be the case for every item on today's list, of course. It is all an opinion-based situation, and really, it should be based on your gameplay. I'm just here to give you the general guidelines. Next up, the only other must-buy on my list, in my opinion. I only have 2 must-buy items on my list, and the first one was obviously the XP Reamplifier. The second one is actually the chum buckets. Now, this only matters if you are fishing shiny hunting, okay? If you are shiny hunting for a fishing Pokemon. But chum buckets are so ridiculously busted, so stupidly good, that if you want to do a fishing shiny hunt, I would actually recommend you go make the Pokeyen to buy the chum buckets if you can't afford them. Like, it's so much better to wait until you can afford the chum buckets than to just shiny hunt without them. You basically should never shiny hunt while fishing without chum buckets. They're that disgustingly good. Chum buckets make it so that every single time you fish, you will always get a bite, and they also severely increase the amount of fishing Pokemon you will get per encounter. I'm going to go ahead and utilize a chum bucket right now. Just for the sake of this video, I'll be mostly wasting this, so hopefully that deserves a like and sub support. But you can see here, you get 2 Whalmers almost every single encounter, and sometimes you can even get 3 Whalmers while doing this. This is drastically going to increase the amount of encounters you get per hour. Fun fact, before chum buckets were added, a fishing shiny hunt used to take around 120 hours. Now, fishing hunts only take about 67 hours, because what happened was, prior to chum buckets, you would get about 220 encounters per hour fishing. You can do 30,000 divided by 220, and that would give you about 136 hours if my calculator was on screen correctly. Around 136 hours to shiny hunt. This was before chum buckets were added. We have tested it extensively, and nowadays, if you use chum buckets, if you do 30,000 divided by the new amount of encounters you get per hour when using chum buckets, which is about 440. That's right, chum buckets double the amount of encounters you get per hour. So you would take this divided by 440. It halves the rate of the time to get a fishing shiny, now only taking about 68 hours. So yes, if you ever plan to do any fishing shunting, please buy chum buckets. They are disgustingly worth it. It is once again worth to go take a break from shiny hunting to save up the Pokeyen to be able to afford the fishing shunt if you can't afford chum buckets for whatever reason. But they only go for about, I think, 60,000 Pokeyen on the GTL. You do not need to go buy them in the gift shop like the Reamplifier. You can just buy them with Pokeyen. Alright, but those are the 2 must-buy items covered. I'm going to keep doing some fishing in the background here to hopefully get some worth out of this chum bucket. Let's now jump into the heavily recommended buying options. The first thing on this list is going to be the 30-day donor status ticket. This is way more worth buying over the 7-day or the 15-day. So as long as you plan to play PokeMMO for a consistent period of time, it's definitely worth buying one of these, but there is no shame in getting the 15-day or 7-day if you can only play for a short period of time. Donator status tickets are really only worth it, in my opinion, if you do a lot of shiny hunting or even a fair bit of shiny hunting. You don't need to do a lot to make them still worth it, especially at current prices. Once again, donator status 30 days currently cost about 2 million Pokeyen. They're super cheap, or really cheap comparatively to what they've been over the years. About 2.2 million Pokeyen for 1 month of donator status. If you do your gym run every day for 1 month, you can go ahead and get about 300,000 Pokeyen per day times 30 and make 9 million Pokeyen. I'm pretty sure you only have to do a solid gym run for about 1 week. Yeah, about 1 week to pay off the cost of a full month's worth of donator status. Based on that math, if you hunt more than 10 hours over an entire month, it is worth to go ahead and buy a 30-day donor status, which is pretty cool in my opinion. You really don't need to shiny hunt that much to make it worth it, but you also don't need donor status to be a shiny hunter. I see a lot of new players getting that conflated as well. Most people shiny hunt in PokeMMO for free. You do not need to pay any Pokeyen to be a good shiny hunter in PokeMMO. You can just do time swipe hordes near a PC. But next up, the second item, we're going to start talking about the ocarinas. And these ocarinas will be at different spots throughout the list based on how effective and how often the ocarina itself is used. The best ocarina, in my opinion, in PokeMMO, but this is really up for debate, is the Fly Ocarina. Being able to do the double Typhlosion gym rerun and lots of other activities, Fly is easily the most common HM that I use within PokeMMO. You always need to traverse the world and get to places quickly. I always have a Fly Ocarina keybound on my account. Even on my Iron Man account, where RP is one of the most valuable rare resources, I still bought a Fly Ocarina because that's how important it is. It is the first ocarina that I recommend everyone buying. Next up is actually the Sweet Scent Ocarina. Not having to have a Pokemon with Sweet Scent in your inventory can be really beneficial and free up party space. This really could matter for things like EV training and XP training. A lot of the ocarinas are honestly just paying for convenience, but a few of them, like the Fly Ocarina or the Sweet Scent Ocarina, might make it so that you can actually XP train an extra Pokemon or EV train one extra Pokemon, and that matters. Now you're getting more Pokeyen per hour simply because you invested in these ocarinas. And in my opinion, the same is true with both the Teleport and the Surf Ocarina. These are the four best ocarinas in my opinion. In that order, I would go Fly Ocarina first, Sweet Scent Ocarina second, Teleport Ocarina third, maybe fourth, and then Surf Ocarina, once again, interchangeable in that third and fourth place. You surf all the time within PokeMMO, and you want to be teleporting all the time as well whenever you're shiny hunting or doing different activities. And you can just throw a Kadabra in your party or some Pokemon with teleport, but sometimes it's, once again, nice to free up that inventory slot. Next up, I do actually have both the name change contract and the team name change plaque under the heavily recommend, only if you need them, of course. You know, it's something where if you don't like your team name, or if you don't like your name, your username in game, in my opinion, that does heavily impact your enjoyment of PokeMMO. MMOs are a game where you log on every single day and you spend thousands of hours here generally. It's really important to like the way your character looks, to like your username, and to just enjoy looking at the game every single day. That's why it's good to have visual mods that you enjoy as well. It's really important if you're going to be doing something for thousands of hours to like the atmosphere. I think having a good username that you take pride in is really underrated in MMOs, or most video games, honestly. Or having a super silly username that makes you laugh every day you log in. That's a totally valuable skill in its own right. But those are all the items, in my opinion, that are heavily worth buying. Next up is decently worth. These are items that I would not recommend to the average player, but I would recommend to certain players in specific situations. And the first one I want to talk about is actually Shiny Charms. Shiny Charms are incredibly Pokeyen inefficient comparatively to Donator status. I severely recommend never popping a Shiny Charm unless you also have Donator status active. If you are popping a Shiny Charm without Donator status, it is just a massive sink of Pokeyen, usually. But efficiency is not everything, and that's where I feel like Shiny Charms really shine. Shiny Charms are mostly just for fun with friends. Being able to pop a Shiny Charm and have an excuse to get 3 of your other friends in a link with 4 people and Shiny Hunt together and be invested in your journeys. You'll often see Shiny Charms popped in teams, and see people in team chat say, hey, I have, you know, this many free spots in my Shiny Charm. Do you want to come Shiny Hunt with me? And it's just a fun way to bond with other players. Or you can use Shiny Charms when you're doing something like egg shiny hunting, popping fossils, or Shalfa hunting. Really expensive shunts where you do actually want to increase your shiny odds at all opportunities you can. But to break down the math, Shiny Charms currently go for 143,000 Pokeyen. And 7-day donators go for 740k. If we take the 7-day donator, which is the least valuable, least Pokeyen efficient donator, by the way, which is worth mentioning, we divide this by 145k, the cost of an average Shiny Charm, you're going to end up with about 5, let's say 6 Shiny Charms. Why not, right? That means that if you buy a donator status 7-day and you hunt for at least 6 hours over an entire week, you would have gotten more value than if you bought the 5 to 6 Shiny Charms for the exact same price, which means if you buy the 7-day donator ticket and you can shiny hunt for 10 hours within a week, which is a little more than 1 hour a day, you're getting much more value than buying Shiny Charms. And this is only going to exacerbate as you go up to things like 15 days or 30-day donor status tickets. But I do understand that donos are more of a commitment. And sometimes, let's say you have a really busy work schedule, you only get 1 hour a week to shiny hunt in PokeMMO. If you want to pop shiny charms for that, go ahead. But in my opinion, I think your Pokeyen is better spent elsewhere. I'll see a lot of newer or medium level players constantly pop shiny charms while doing things like ×5 horde shiny hunts, and I really don't recommend that either, because that only shaves off about 3 hours on a shiny hunt, and that's if you're popping the entire time, right? If the shiny rate is 1 in 30,000 and shiny charms knock off 3,000 encounters, which is 10%, it takes down your rate to 1 in 27,000 encounters, right? And you get about 1,000 encounters per hour while doing ×5 hordes in PokeMMO. That's only 3 hours off of a shiny hunt that you save. And that is if you pop shiny charms the entire time. So that's 27 times 143,000 Pokeyen. You are paying 3.8 million Pokeyen to save 3 hours. That is only really worth it if you're able to make 1.3 million Pokeyen an hour. And I don't know many players who are doing that besides the best flippers in the game, and even they may struggle to make that. That's ludicrous amounts of yen. Shiny charms are really not worth it in my opinion for things like ×5 horde shiny hunts. Once again, that's just the efficiency discussion. If you want to pop them for fun, have fun. But I just don't want to see new players drain away all their money on shiny charms and then also not get the shiny and be like, oh man, like what did I do wrong? And then I have to be like, well, I really wouldn't have recommended you buy shiny charms, you know, but some people just love to gamble. So it is what it is. Next up on the decently worth buying list is PC expansion drives. These will give you a whole extra box in your PC. I can actually show you that very quickly on my account because I have almost all of them bought on my main account, but that is a very luxurious, more endgame purchase. As you can see, I have a ton of boxes on my account, which is a huge privilege. I mostly use these for egg shiny hunting, as you can see by the very obvious labels. I think you only really need to buy PC expansion drives if you want to egg shiny hunt, and that's if you want to do it a lot, or maybe prepare for something like shiny wars in a very serious sense. PC expansion drives are nice for egg hunters, but they are so expensive, dude. They cost about, let's go check really quick, and even right now they're the cheapest they've ever been. This is the cheapest you will ever see PC expansion drives probably ever get for many years, right? And they're 1.2 million Pokeyen a piece, right? To fully max out your PC, you can buy 20 of these, I think. This is going to cost you 24 million Pokeyen to get all the PC expansion drives that you need to totally max out your account. They are so ludicrously expensive. And what I recommend aggressively for most people is just make alt accounts. You can make alt accounts for free. That will give you 13, I think, boxes per account. And you can just mail Pokemon or whatever you need to over to those accounts. It is going to cost you a little bit of Pokeyen per mail, and it kind of can be annoying. But nowadays with box trading as well, it's gotten a lot faster and a lot easier to use alt accounts as PC storage. So you don't have to buy and spend all the money on PC expansion drives. All right, but that is all the decently worth buying items. Now it is on to the barely worth buying items, or feel free to avoid. First thing on this list is the training link. Now, some people love this item, and it's not a bad item. It's just kind of niche in my opinion. I think the training link is super worth it if you do a lot of alt account storyline runs or help people with a lot of storylines. But maybe you have some really niche situation where you don't want a Pokemon to gain XP, but that's not really common these days within PokeMMO. The training link is honestly kind of an item that is a product of olden times PokeMMO. If you don't know, the training link is similar to the X3 Reamplifier, where it is untradable and it is account bound, so you have to buy it with RP. And whenever it's held by a Pokemon, it prevents the holder from gaining any XP, but it doubles the EV gain. However, it's not really relevant because you can't buy, unless you buy like 5 of these, but I don't even know if you can do that. If you could buy 5 of these and then put them all on your Pokemon while you use the XP Reamplifier and get double EVs while EV training, maybe that's, you know, worth it, but I don't even know if you can do that hilariously. And that's just so expensive to speed up EV training, which is already a really fast activity. EV training 5 Pokemon at once these days takes about 30 minutes. comparatively to the 10 hours that it used to take when I started playing PokeMMO back in 2013, which reminds me how Training Link is a product of olden PokeMMO. You see, Training Link actually is a renamed item, which is why I actually have one in my bag. It used to be called the Amnesia Brace, which was a required item back in 2013. The Amnesia Brace used to be a must-buy item because back in 2013 PokeMMO, whenever you played PvP, your Pokemon wouldn't be auto leveled down, which means right now if I queue up for PvP with this shiny Rampardos, it'll get scaled down to level 50. We didn't have that technology back in 2013. If I played PvP with a Pokemon that was over level 50, you would almost always get disqualified from tournaments. You needed to keep every single competitive Pokemon exactly level 50 in PokeMMO in 2013. One level below or one level above was a disqualification. Well, technically, I think one level below was fine, but any levels above was disqualification. This also made it so Tyranitar and Dragonite were restricted to something called level 100s. Back then, you had two different tiers, or I guess sub-tiers of PokeMMO PvP. You had level 50s and level 100s. Pretty much everybody played level 50s back then. For a few different reasons. Number one, XP training Pokemon to level 100 used to take forever. And then on top of it, the tier was just kind of overran by Tyranitar and Dragonite and Salamence and all the Pokemon you couldn't get in 50s. They were so much stronger than all the other Pokemon. So back in the day, you would buy an Amnesia Brace to make sure you could keep your Pokemon competitive. What if you caught like a level 43 Pokemon that was competitive ready back in 2013 in the wild? If you EV trained it, it might have gone above level 50, which was why it was so important to have the Amnesia Brace. But nowadays, once again, you don't really need it. It's kind of barely worth buying or only worth buying for super niche situations or playstyles. Now, we are going to start rapid firing through some of the ocarinas, and I think these ocarinas are still, once again, barely worth buying. They're not total avoids, but they are so much less common than the other ones. Cut Ocarina, in my opinion, goes on this list. Same with Rock Smash Ocarina. You can use this when Rock Smash farming and making some Pokeyen. Rock Climb Ocarina is also on this list because when you forget a Rock Climb Pokemon, it really sucks. And you also use this during your trainer reruns. Defog Ocarina is on this list as well, since it is also used in trainer reruns. But you also use it, like it's just very barely used, and you can also use it when shiny hunting Swablu, but generally you could just bring a default Pokemon most of the time. And I think those are all 4 ocarinas that I put in the barely worth it. Everything else is actually in the avoid, especially Dig Ocarina. I'm a big Dig Ocarina hater, but I'll get to that in a sec. First, let's finish our barely worth buying. I do want to mention the battle box expansion drives. I don't really use the battle boxes almost ever, but some people really like these. It's actually a way to have teams of Pokemon ready to go in your boxes. PvP players especially really like these and use them pretty consistently, but you can use them for things like raid teams or your gym run team. The only problem is that sometimes you run into a thing where if a Pokemon is untradeable or if it's in your account box, which I use a lot, it can kind of mess with what's available in your battle box, so I end up not using them a ton for that reason. But once again, some people find them very, very helpful, so I wanted to mention them at least. And then finally, the last item on the barely worth buying is going to be premium lures. Premium lures are just super expensive for the effect they give. They do give you 25% increased encounter rate, stronger wild Pokemon. You encounter 2 to 3 Pokemon at a time, very similar to the Chum Bucket. You also get a 10% chance for Lure exclusive species. Like, that's pretty cool to make things like Charmander a 10% encounter instead of a 5%. And you can even get little small hordes of Pokemon, like 3 Charmanders in a battle sometimes. And the biggest lure to this item is the bottom line of text that says if you encounter a shiny Pokemon, secret shiny rates are increased by plus 25%. This all sounds really good and exciting. The problem is they are 60,000 Pokeyen for 400 steps. Yes, all the effects are very powerful, but they are just ludicrously expensive to use, usually costing hundreds of thousands of Pokeyen per hour. Based on my calculations of getting around 2,500 steps per hour, which is about what I do with expert lures, you should be expected to use about 6.25 premium lures per hour, which would cost about 375,000 Pokeyen. So, I mean, honestly, as RP has gotten cheaper, I do think it's worth considering to use premium lures during things like Shiny Wars or like big events. I do think premium lures arguably could be in the decently worth category, but I think that would lead some players astray. I think they really should only be used during like events and, you know, shiny hunting wars like I mentioned. They are just so freaking expensive. But hey, man, if you're really rich in PokeMMO, maybe you don't mind using them a ton. And similarly to shiny charms, they are a ton of fun. It is really exciting to see groups of like 3 Charmanders or like 3 Sudowoodos wild. It's really cool, man. But don't let that secret shiny rate boost you, right? Secret shinies are 16 times rarer than a normal shiny Pokemon. So if you take 30,000 and multiply that by 16, it means that secret shinies are about 1 in 480,000. Now, the premium lures only boost this by 25%, and it only matters if you actually get a shiny encounter on the premium lure. So if you take that 480,000 number and multiply it by 0.75, factoring in that 25%, it makes secret shinies still 1 out of 360,000. It takes the secret shiny rate from 1 in 480k to 1 in 360k, which yes is a big increase, but is still so astronomically rare, and the odds of you actually getting a shiny on the lure is so unlikely. It's just super expensive. I think that's like the biggest bait on that item, is try to trick players into thinking it really increases your secret shiny rate when it kind of does, but man, it's just so unlikely. Pop them for fun, not for efficiency, is my TLDR on premium lures. And finally, we are at the avoid category. I can talk about the biggest item that I hate within PokeMMO. It's the Dig Ocarina. I hate this item. Even with ocarinas being cheaper than they ever have been, with the Dig Ocarina currently costing 300,000 Pokeyen, in my opinion, this is still disgustingly not worth it. You see, I am a part of Escape Rope Gang. Escape Ropes only cost 750 Pokeyen. So if you divide the 300k cost from Dig Ocarina by 750, that means that you could buy 400 Escape Ropes. You would have to forget to bring a Dig Pokemon, which you already don't need a whole lot in the game anyway. You would have to forget to bring your Dig Pokemon to Ditto hunting or Axew shiny hunting or whatever activity you're doing over 400 times before the Dig Ocarina would ever outweigh just buying 25 to 50 Escape Ropes. I've played PokeMMO for over 12,000 hours at this point on multiple accounts, and I've been playing since 2013, and I have never used enough Escape Ropes to outweigh the cost of Dig Ocarina. When you're doing something like Ditto hunting or, once again, Axew hunting, just try to remember to bring a Dig Pokemon, and then if you happen to forget, just pack a few Escape Ropes. Dig Ocarina is a total avoid in my opinion, and it only really is worth it if you want to collect all of the ocarinas, which I have done on my main account. I think I'm actually missing this Sweet Scent one, hilariously. That's a newer one that I haven't gotten yet. So yeah, if you want to collect all the ocarinas, go for it. And from here, I'm going to rapid fire a ton of ocarinas because there's a lot of ocarinas on this list, and the reasoning is almost always the same. The reasoning why almost all of these ocarinas are a hard avoid is that they are so incredibly rarely needed, and you can just bring an HM Pokemon or some Pokemon that knows these moves ahead of time to the activity you're going to. The ocarinas that I would avoid purchasing, unless you want to collect them all, include the Flash Ocarina, the Strength Ocarina, the Whirlpool Ocarina, the Headbutt Ocarina, the Waterfall Ocarina. Now, I do want to add on for the Waterfall Ocarina, it's also a good move, so a lot of times Pokemon just know this passively. And then finally, the Dive Ocarina. How often do you use the Dive Ocarina? Now, obviously, this is an opinion-based list, and it wouldn't surprise me if someone's going to be in the comments saying that, Patrouski, I use the Strength Ocarina every day when I go do this activity. And if that's the case, that's awesome. Share your story. Let me know what you use it for. If you think it's more worth it, that is totally fine and totally awesome. This is not a de facto objective list. This is definitely just my opinion. And then finally, there's one more item that I did want to mention, and it's one that pretty much nobody buys. It is the 10 Cherish Balls. These are effectively just a very expensive Ultra Ball or Great Ball, I believe. They have a catch rate of 2 times, which I think is the same as either Great Ball or Ultra Ball. Let's go check really quick. Great Balls are 1.5. Yeah, Ultra Ball. Yeah, 2 times. They are essentially a very expensive Ultra Ball, but you're not buying them for the catch rate. You're probably buying them because they look cool. So that's it. If you like Cherish Balls and you want to put some Pokemon in them, they cost 26,000 Pokeyen a piece. Enjoy. Personally, I just stick with the luxury balls. I think they look really good and are very cool. Even Premier Balls are way cheaper than Cherish Balls and are also very cool in my opinion. But that's the final item I wanted to talk about. Just the final thing, the cherish balls. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, like the video once again. Dislike if you didn't. Subscribe for daily Pokemon videos. I do upload almost every single day here on YouTube, and I stream Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. ET over on Twitch and here on YouTube. My Discord's down below if you're interested in joining a community that loves this game and loves yapping about it. And if you want to go above and beyond and support the content, YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, and PayPal and Venmo donations really allow me to be here. I could not spend as much time as I do on these videos without your guys' support. So thank you so much. Have a great day and good luck on getting some good deals on some RP items, and make sure to pick up that XP reamplifier when you can afford it. Yo, what's up? Outro Patrouski here, and I wanted to say thank you so much to everybody's name who is on this list. You really allow me to make the content that I do every single day, and I hope I can make it worth your guys' while and add to your PokeMMO journey. Thanks again so much for watching the entire video, and have a great day.